Hey up everybody, my name's Joshua Morrison, director of Johnny Moz's Lessons in Confidence. Today I want to talk a little bit about your brain and how your brain can kind of come up with little worst case scenarios for various things that you might be worrying about. All these different things that kind of go on in your life that you kind of think about and see what could go wrong, how's it going to work out, and why is it going to go wrong, how have you messed this thing up this time, what's going on, why is everything sort of wrong, right? First off, I'd like to segregate this into sort of two halves. So you have active worries and passive worries. So active worries are things that you are worried about that are sort of material, that are real, that have actually happened, and that are events that you are reminiscing in a worrying sort of state. You're sort of going, oh, that happened, and then that's going to cause this other thing to happen, and then that thing that I think will happen that was caused by this thing that already has happened will cause this much worse thing to happen, right? So that's sort of active worrying, at least in this definition, right? And then there's passive worrying, which is worrying about things that haven't happened yet, but that you suspect might happen. Right? And passive worrying, don't get me wrong, can become active worrying. It has happened. I've had various things that I've sort of laid down, I've sort of gone, Josh, don't worry about it. It's just your little anxiety's going, don't worry about it, okay? Everything will be fine. And I'm saying that to myself, right? And then the thing that I was actually worried about and having that little anxiety about actually happens, right? And so that passive worry has become an active worry, right? And now that thing has happened, I now have to worry about the consequences of it and then the events that those consequences are going to cause, right? And then how am I going to deal with those consequences? So both are just as important as one another. There's no, important one. Don't worry about the passive worries, just forget about them because they're not real. Just worry about the active worries, right? No, they are both two sort of halves of the same coin. But active worrying takes I think it should take a priority in your brain, because an active worry is something that has already sort of happened, whereas a passive worry is something that you fear might happen, right? And if something has already happened and there is a consequence to what is going on that you are kind of living through, your worry should be, your worry space in your brain should be dedicated to that active worry, rather than already having to deal with the active worry, which you're going to have to deal with no matter what, also trying to deal with this passive worry, which might not actually amount to anything. So it's not that you shouldn't worry about the passive worries at all, but you should sort of take a look at what is going on. Why are these things happening? Why do you think that this worry is something that is potentially a problem? Why are you scared of this? What's going on here? And how can you sort it out? How can you deal with it? How can you turn this worry into a non-worry, into a non-issue, something that has been, like the book has been closed on it? How can you do that? Well, there's a few different ways. With a passive worry there is. First off is to really sort of dig deep into the issue, what's causing it in a mental capacity, get into nitty-gritty specifics that are so finely tuned that they are just unique to you and only you, something that no fucking YouTube video can impart onto you, right? Look at, say if it's a person that you've got an anxiety about, maybe a bully or something like that, right? Take a look at the various events that have happened around that bullying sort of scenario, or even suspected bullying, right? And you're trying to figure out, are you being bullied or whatever. Take a look at the various events that are amalgamating to create this worry, because you're not walking around with each of these worries like at the forefront of your mind. You're kind of sitting there with the conclusion already at the beginning, but without sort of thinking about all the stuff that leads you to that conclusion. That stuff is happening in the subconscious, and your conscience is dealing with the ramifications of your subconscious, right? So take a second to just dive into your subconscious and extract all of those unspoken things in your mind into clear, conscious reminiscences, right? Oh, this bully sort of said this sort of thing to me. We're just using bully as an example. He said this to me on Monday, and then on Wednesday, he sort of laughed at me while I was sort of trying to do this. And then on Friday, I heard him sort of whispering to that other guy, and then they both sort of looked at me. That could have been something else. But the laughing thing, I'm fairly sure that he was actually laughing at me. And that Monday thing, when he said something rude, that was just outright rude. So That's 2 out of 3 things. But you could even call it 2.5 things, because you kind of have a suspicion that, you know, they were pointing and laughing at you, because, you know, anytime someone does this sort of like, you know, that kind of thing, right? Come on. We all know what you're doing. You're taking the piss out of us, right? It's obvious. So take those various thoughts and memories, and the more you think about specific details, the more specific details will actually come to your memory. It's the same way, say you meet like an old school friend, right? Years down the line, and you're reminiscing, and you're telling stories back and forth. You find yourself, do you find yourself telling stories that you don't remember, but because you're now with this person, suddenly you remember them because they've made you remember? It's the same with this, in trying to extract the subconscious into the conscious. More stuff will float to the top of the subconscious, around the bottom of the conscious. If we're thinking of it almost like a sea, now the fish have come up to a level where you can actually get the rod in and the bait will actually stay there, rather than being too deep into the ocean for the rod to actually get anywhere near it. All right, so take a look, extract your subconscious into the conscious, because your subconscious mind is really good at sort of processing information. However, it's not good at telling you how it's processing it. It just sort of does it. It's the same way that I don't know how a computer works, but I know how to use a computer program. It's the same with the brain, right? If I knew how to do computing or programming, right, I could get a job in programming and be making like £100,000 a year. Try and figure out how to do that with the brain, okay? My phone keeps buzzing. Why does it keep doing that? It's getting in the way. I am trying to record a video. Jesus. No respect, right? Anyway, so when it comes to your mind and active and passive worrying, right? I'm thinking about this, right? Because yesterday I was in a real total awful mood, right? And it was an active worry. It was about something that had happened a couple of weeks ago that I was sort of dealing with the ramifications of, and I was worrying about those ramifications and the consequences of it, right? And today, and I kind of sort of came to conclusions, and I managed to sort of fix a lot of those sort of worries in my head. Yesterday I managed to solve all of that, and today I'm not worrying about yesterday's stuff in particular, but I'm still in a worrying mindset, right? An anxiety-prone state. And so I was walking here, and my brain started like giving me little scenarios, like fake scenarios, like this person is talking smack about you, or doing this secretly behind your back, or this person is doing this, or like all those people over there, they're only pretending to be your friend, and stuff like that, right? And then I sort of said to my brain, you know, you're just making shit up at this point just so you have something to worry about. None of this actually happened. You just made all that up, right? Like one of them was like was me worrying about like one of my best friends just being just an awful person, right? And I thought, hang on, this hasn't happened. My best friend's a lovely person. Why am I sort of trying to ruin everything nice around my life, right? Through this passive worrying about something that hasn't actualized yet. But at the same time, I think the reason I'm doing that is because I have been burnt before by doing passive worrying, shutting it out completely and neglecting it, and then it comes to fruition. So I had one of my best friends sleep with one of my girlfriends, right? And I never spoke to either of them again, and they knew each other, like, so, and they were sort of seeing each other like in my house while I was going to work and stuff. And so I've kind of taken the fact that anxiety came to fruition, and now I'm applying it almost like a trauma response. I don't want to call it a trauma response because that implies I'm traumatized by the experience. Well, I'm not. I'm just using, I think trauma response is a decent term that you can understand. Like, you know, you learn a lesson and then you apply that lesson onto the next thing. The next time any kind of scenario that even raises a suspicion of anything like that happening again, it's made me more hyper-aware of that kind of thing, right? And more suspicious of people as a result. Like after that happened, I started like just chopping people out of my life left, right and center, right? For reasons that before I wouldn't have like I've been happy to keep them around, but now I sort of grew a backbone as a result of it. And so passive worrying that becomes active worrying, that then becomes solved, is something that then allows you, gives you a defense mechanism against future passive worries, right? I remember the first girlfriend I ever had, I was very sort of jealous because I'd never had a girlfriend before, but girlfriend had a boyfriend, right? And so I was sort of like jealous that they'd sort of slept with people and I had never slept with people. And like, I knew it was stupid, right? But my brain wouldn't let me out of it. And so I managed to solve whatever was going on, that little jealousy. I managed to solve it, right? And then with the girlfriend that came after that, it sort of about a year in, I started to notice that little jealousy was coming back, right? But it sort of went away again because I was like, I've solved this issue already. It's the same way that your immune system develops an immunity to like a new virus or whatever, you know? It's that kind of thing, but for a mental capacity, right? So you solve an issue, and then anytime something similar to that comes back, that then in turn makes you more able to deal with it, right? The same way, like the first job that you ever worked, you probably weren't a very good employee, right? But then by your 10th job, you're a much better employee, even if you're in a different field, right? Even if it's the first time you're in this field, you're probably more able to take in new information and learn and understand how to get on with your co-workers and stuff like that because you've learned through experience, because you've managed to solve this stuff in your mind. Because the first job that you had, you know, you'd have been having all sorts of like, I don't know, passive worries about all sorts of little things that go on in the brain, you know, like anxieties about like your performance and stuff like that, and you feel a lot more stiff and unable to actually get stuff done, and you're more shy because you're basically a kid still. And then as you grow up a bit, you get more and more, sorry, more and more capable of dealing with the pressures of a new job, because you've done it a few times, you've been through these motions, you understand what's going on in the world of, you know, work and stuff like that. Same with anything. The more that you get experience at something, the better you'll be able to handle it and the better you'll be able to deal with what's going on in that sort of sphere, right? And so, can I take these sunglasses off? Yeah. Sort of, not really. I'm gonna keep them back on. So I think just to sort of conclude this, I would say that sometimes your brain makes stuff up just to get you agitated. I don't know if that's everyone, maybe that is just me, but you know, there's loads of people that have like, you know, depression and stuff like that. And you know, I imagine that overthinking and stuff like that is quite common within people, and you know, a hyper self-awareness, right? And that endless sort of dialogue between you and your brain is kind of what makes you you, or at least it's what makes me me, right? And I am both me and my brain, or however you want to think about it. You might think about it in a different way, maybe like the conscious and the subconscious mind, like I was using earlier, which is still a very useful sort of tool to sort of figure out, you know, say if you think a sentence like, oh, that dog looks very big, right? So I've just said that sentence, that dog looks very big. Say I've said that in my conscious mind. I've looked at a big dog and I thought that dog looks very big, right? In the subconscious mind, there's all sorts of little things going on, like cogs whirring. Like, for instance, the idea of what is a dog and what is a big dog. What's the difference between a big dog and a medium-sized dog and a small dog? The subconscious is sorting all that stuff out for you. You don't literally sit there and look at the sky and like think, okay, the sky is blue. You just know it's blue, right? You know what's going on. You know how these sort of things work. You know how the world around you works in general. You know that like this is made of fucking atoms. You know that you're made of skin and flesh and stuff. And when you need to recount that information to make any kind of point, you can do that quite easily because you're tapping into various parts of your subconscious mind. The same way that you know your name and you always know your name, right? Because it's just part of your subconscious mind. Or the same way, like I was talking about, when you have you meet an old school friend and you start talking and you come up with new stories that you kind of forgot about. They're true stories, you haven't just made them up, but they were sitting in a part of your mind that you don't activate very much, your subconscious mind, right? You could have come up with those if something else had managed to tap into that. It's sort of like, it's like having a hard drive, right? But not being able to plug it in, right? Say you've taken a hard drive out of your old laptop and it's just sitting there and you can't plug it into your new one because like the SATA cable doesn't work. So in this analogy, going out and getting a new SATA cable would be going to meet that old school friend, and plugging the SATA cable in and seeing all that stuff on your old hard drive would be tapping into that old memory, right? And so that's where the conscious and the subconscious kind of coalesce in order to create solutions to the problems that come around, right? It's just an idea of how the brain kind of works. And I would say, try not to worry too much about the passive worries. The stuff that I was talking about, you know, like, oh, so-and-so must think I'm a twat, or so-and-so is doing this, or like, oh my God, I'm such a failure. But no one's ever commented on you being a failure. No one's ever even raised the suspicion of it, but you just feel like everyone's looking at you like you're a dirty fuck, like you've done nothing with your life, or something like that, right? You're sitting there thinking this stuff that never comes to fruition, right? Try and look for signs. Little details, almost proof, like gather intelligence like a detective. And if you see evidence towards this being a real thing that you just don't know about yet, then you can give that passive worry a bit more of your attention, right? Compared to something that you have just purely made up, like this passive worry that I've just come up with while I was walking here about one of my best friends, right? I've got that little worry about them just being an awful person, doing something to betray me. And I don't know why that's there, because I know this person, they're a brilliant person. I know that they would never do that, right? But you look for evidence and you see if there is evidence, right? Is there evidence in this scenario? No. Have there been evidences for similar scenarios in the past? Yes. So I understand why my brain is giving the sort of this best friend this kind of anxiety treatment. And it's the same way that, you know, as I said, once you solve an issue, it builds an immunity to it. I'm not like the last time this kind of thing happened where, you know, I was worried about someone betraying me, it kind of crippled me a little bit for a couple of days. Here, I seem to have gotten over it in the space of about half an hour, right? So, and then next time it happens, it might just be a flash in the pan thought and just gets negated, right? So the more that you go through life, the more you experience, the better you get at dealing with the things that come in your life, right? The better you get at dealing with the problems and stuff like that. And the more that you can segregate a passive worry and an active worry, the better a job you'll do at progressing through life in general. And the better you'll do at, you know, evolving into your ultimate form, whatever that may be, whatever it is that you want to do and become, right? And yeah, that's pretty much the video. That's all I have to say. I hope it made some level of sense. I know we've kind of gone through a few different things and a bit of an exploration into the subconscious mind, and maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's a bit too abstract, but I hope you managed to get something out of it. I hope you were able to learn a little bit, or even about yourself, or anything like that. And yeah, thank you very much. I've got to keep those on, it's so fucking sunny. This spring started, so it looks pretty nice, doesn't it? So yeah, thank you very much everybody for watching this video. Please leave your comments below about what your thoughts are on the conscious mind versus the subconscious mind, this idea of passive and active worrying, the whole sort of framework for dealing with anxieties and worry that I've kind of laid out in this video. Let me know what you think about this framework. Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? Do you think that there's better ways of putting this stuff into words and stuff like that? Or do you have experience with these sort of things that I'm talking about? Please let me know. Let me know all about that sort of stuff. Leave your life story in the comments as well. Yeah, thank you very much for watching this, everybody. Yeah, take care, everybody. Bye-bye. The chairs isn't going to be a recurring thing. I just sort of took it out for today. So you'll see it in probably like, I don't know, a couple other videos. Ugh.